Great. Okay, cool. All right, well, we have Josh Nolan here, who is a staff member of Downshift. When did you start working with us?
I started in November of 2019.
All right, so Josh joined us in November 2019. How long have you been an e-bike user?
For 2 months.
All right, so Josh has had an e-bike for about 2 months. I have been riding my e-bike for, oh gosh, I don't even know. Maybe since last fall, I got an e-bike. We're going to get into the different types of e-bikes that we all have. Matt McKinney will be joining us shortly, so we'll cue him in. But Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are? And you've been biking for a long time, so maybe you can kind of tell people a little bit about just the biking experience you have in general, and then your e-bike usage.
Okay. Well, I actually got my bike. I got my electric upgrade kit installed at Downshift in June, and you know, I'm an avid transportation cyclist. We got rid of our car about a little over 10 years ago. And, currently we're a 1-car household, and that means that my wife primarily drives the car. And so I primarily get around by bike and then use the car when I need to do something that is easier to do in the car. And I guess I didn't like an e-bike wasn't something that really appealed to me or that I thought that I might want to have. Because part of cycling part of being a transportation cyclist is I just feel like I get around on my own, by my own locomotion. And, I guess I had an idea that might be for older people or people that couldn't propel themselves. But I had a cargo bike that I used to haul things around, and I modified it to hold my kids. And just at a certain point, like, cargo bikes are really slow, and when you put like 80-90 pounds worth of kids on there, then you don't go very fast. And I had places I needed to get, and I didn't have a lot of time to get there. And so the option of the electric kit really made it possible for me to extend my range, and I think honestly go be more like safe. Like when you're throwing your kids on there, then you're worried that interacting with traffic, you just don't want to have an incident that could put your kids' lives at risk. And with the e-bike, I've got a throttle, and I can speed up a little bit if I need to when I'm entering traffic. I can go similar speeds to cars on slow moving streets. And so I just feel like it's safer, and we can get over to the Elks Club pool, and we can get over to my kids' after school care in Southeast and get all over Roanoke. So.
Awesome. Hey, thank you for that, Aaron. Yeah. Thank you so much. Welcome, Matt. Matt, I'm going to unmute you. What we've all done is just shared kind of a little bit more about our cycling life in general, and then when we got an e-bike and why we made that decision to get an e-bike. And Aaron told us a little bit about what kit he has.
Great. Can you hear me? Awesome. So my name is Matt McKinney. I'm a cyclist in many different varieties. So I enjoy mountain biking, gravel biking, biking on the road, and then also cargo biking. And so behind me, you see my Yuba Mundo cargo bike, and we have the Luna electrification kit that we worked with Downshift to have that installed. I guess it's been a little over a year ago now. And one of the main reasons that we decided that we wanted the electric kit for our cargo bike was we really do enjoy using our cargo bike for carrying heavy loads, whether that's kids or friends or supplies from the home and garden store. And having that electric kit on there definitely makes it a lot easier. One of the other things that I really like is that this vehicle often serves as a car replacement for our family. And being able to have the electric kit to be able to go a speed closer to that of traffic definitely makes it feel a lot safer when you're using a bike as a main form of transportation.
Awesome. Thank you, Matt. So Aaron and Matt both utilize a cargo bike, and that is one of the reasons they wanted to electrify theirs. My bike is a regular bike that I do have a child seat on, and use to commute to work. And the main reason I wanted to get an electric bike, honestly, was because in the summer, I didn't want to show up places super, super sweaty. And so I don't know if anyone else has had any thoughts on that, in terms of the way an electric bike has changed due to your work environment. Maybe you felt like you needed to show up somewhere and not be, maybe you weren't choosing your bike in certain weather. And if having an electric bike has changed that for you. So I don't know, Josh, if you wanted to go first and talk about if the weather has impacted and having an e-bike has changed the way, maybe choosing your bike more often or anything.
Yeah. So when you're riding like a normal bike or a manual bike, the temptation is always there to just drive your car instead, and that's amped up even more whenever it's raining or there's a really nasty headwind or something like that. Whereas with my e-bike, it really doesn't matter what the forecast is. Having that extra power boost, especially in like headwinds specifically, it makes it a lot easier to choose the bike instead of another alternative, because you can kind of show up places at the exact same rate, regardless of what the weather looks like. And I haven't ridden it in snow yet. I was kind of excited to do that, but it hasn't snowed here, so I can't talk about that. But yeah, I mean, it's just nice having a reliable option regardless of what the weather is. So that's one of the main reasons I got the bike in the first place.
Great. Aaron, do you want to speak on weather and electric bikes at all, and whether having an electric bike has changed when you would choose a bike versus when you wouldn't?
Sure. I think for me, it didn't really change when I would have one and when I wouldn't. Although I think one observation I have is that I live like a mile away from where I work, and my kids go to school about the same distance. And so I'm able to navigate weather pretty easily because, if it's raining cats and dogs, like I can just wait a little bit, or I can walk, or I can hop a ride with like my wife or my dad, or I can take the bus. The bus goes right by my house. So I have a lot of different options. I think when, you're worried about headwinds and those type of things is maybe if you have a longer commute. So if you live farther away from the places you go regularly, then that's a bigger factor. Having a cargo bike and have an electric cargo bike specifically, though, has allowed me to bring more layers and equipment. And so I usually have a bag in my cargo bike that has not only my rain jacket, but we have those like LL Bean yellow rain suits for my kids. And so they really love it when it rains and they get to ride the bike in the rain, and they want me to ride through big puddles, and they wear their rain suits. And so, it's having a bike with cargo capacity and not really having to worry about how much weight I'm hauling around because I've got an electric assist has allowed me to navigate biking with kids in the all weather a little easier.
Cool. Matt, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would actually say for me, the main weather condition that having the e-bike encourages me to bike more in is actually the opposite of what we're hearing from everyone else. And that's when it's really hot and sunny outside. So if I'm using my bike as a way to get around, to get from place to place, generally if it's really hot, 90 degrees, you don't want to show up somewhere just soaking wet, drenched in sweat. And having the e-bike allows you to use a bike to get places without working quite so hard and working up quite so much of a sweat. And so I feel like in that regard, it's made it feel a little bit more socially acceptable for me to use the bike, even in the hot summer months, as a way to get around.
I definitely agree, Matt. I didn't always love showing up at work super sweaty. And so it's really nice to kind of have an option to turn my bike e-assist up and not show up quite as sweaty. if anyone has any questions throughout this conversation, please post them and we will be able to respond to them. One question that I have for folks, and whoever wants to start can, is if anyone has had anything surprise them about having an e-bike.
Well, for me, the biggest surprise was the benefits that I wasn't expecting. So I expected the benefits about being able to get places and not be so tired, of being able to get places faster. I think that for me, the biggest surprise was how much safer I felt biking with traffic because I was able to go closer to the same speed. That's not something that I had really considered or thought about as part of the e-bike experience, and was really pleasantly surprised that made much more of an impact, much more of an impression than I expected it to.
Well, I think initially I was just surprised. Like, I just didn't consider having one. And actually, Matthew let me borrow his. And I have a very similar setup to him. And so I was surprised when I rode his at how fun it was, and that I could haul. Like, I actually took both my kids and one of their friends, and we rode. I don't know if I told you I rode on the mountain bike trails over in Morningside Park. But that was before they were even officially open, so they didn't have any rules. But it was a park. So that surprised me. I think sometimes I surprise other people because people think that I'm on a bike, so they should be able to easily pass me and overcome me. And every e-bikes are different, so some of them are going to be more regulated on how fast they can go, but mine's a kit, so they're, and I have gearing also, so I can actually go pretty fast if I want to. And sometimes I'll have a car behind me that's just doing their darndest to pass me, and they think that they should be able to pass me, but I'm already going the speed limit, and so there's no reason to pass me. And so I could hear them behind me revving their engine, trying to figure out how I'm going so fast. So anyway, I just find it a little amusing.
Yeah, I had my first experience the other day of having to pass another cyclist on the road because I was going faster. And what was surprising to me was just sort of how uncomfortable that felt, because I'm really usually not fast enough to pass anyone. And how I always add the disclaimer as I'm passing that I'm on an e-bike, so that they don't think I'm just blowing by them on this sort of cruiser style bike, looking like I'm not really even working that hard. But I think part of the surprise for me has been how I am choosing my bike more, but I don't know that I was necessarily surprised by that. But I haven't gotten a lot of negative feedback about my e-bike, whereas I feel like I do hear a lot of stigma about having an e-bike. But I feel like a lot of that isn't applicable in the transportation setting, because most people, when they see me with a little baby on the front biking him to daycare, they think it's really exciting and cool, and they don't necessarily, they're not like, oh, but it'd be better if you weren't on an e-bike, and as they get out of their SUV. So I think that I haven't gotten as much negative feedback in that regard as I thought I might. I know, Josh, you mentioned kind of the surprising stigma, and maybe Aaron, you were the one who brought this up of I'm not older, nor am I we don't necessarily have any sort of disability that would kind of make people feel justified in having an e-bike. Did you want to say anything about the stigma that you've sort of seen?
Yeah, so I think whenever people see an e-bike, and it's like they have to have a specific realm that exists in, like commuting or cargo bikes or things like that. And I think the stigma especially exists around when you get into e-mountain bikes or e-road bikes, where people are riding alongside non-motorized vehicles or whatever. I think that's an interesting conversation, because I don't know, personally, I think it's okay as long as it's making you have fun, I don't see any reason to look down on a motorized bike as opposed to, a manual bike. As long as your experience is being enhanced in some way, I think that's okay. I don't know.
Yeah. Cool. All right. We have a question here from Patty. Patty asked what kind of e-bike to get and what criteria is more important when looking to get an e-bike. And so I know I can speak as we have had a few different models of e-bikes or styles of e-bikes in the shop at Downshift. And I think there are a few different things to consider when making an e-bike purchase. And I know Matt and Aaron have the same model and chose to do a Luna e-kit, which is a electric mid-drive motor that is put on an existing bicycle. And they can talk about why they chose that one. But I know one of the reasons people choose that is because they already have a bike they like or enjoy, and they'd like to electrify it. And in their case, it was both cargo bikes. For myself, I made and Josh we both made the decision to buy a bike that was already an electric bike with the mid-drive motor integrated into the entire system. And I know for me, one of the reasons I chose that is I wanted something super easy and super straightforward. I'm not somebody who likes to tinker with settings on like an electric motor. Like that's not necessarily something I want to do. I just want to be able to get on it and go. So for me, that was really important. And I chose, mine is a Bosch system, which is a long-standing company that I don't feel have I have no hesitation with choosing this reputable company. Josh has a Yamaha e-bike, which Downshift also sells, and Yamaha has been making e-bikes for actually a really long time, I think longer than most people would know. And they are one of the only bikes on the market right now that both make the bicycle and the motor system. So they are putting out a product that is the entire system of the e-bike, both the motor and the bicycle. So that's one of the reasons that we chose to sell the Yamaha e-bikes. So choosing whether one is integrated or if it's an add-on system like a Luna e-kit, or for example, the Copenhagen wheel is another common e-bike system that we've seen, which is a rear hub that has both the motor and the battery in it that is just dropped into a current bicycle that you have. I think it is I think you would make that decision based on how much customization and whether or not you already have a bike that you like. So that's one reason. Another thing to think about is the weight of the bicycle. So these bikes are never going to be lightweight bikes, but some are certainly heavier than others. And so when you're looking at the cost of an e-bike, some of the things that might make one e-bike more expensive or less expensive than the other is some of the models that are out there that might be a little bit less expensive are made from very, very heavy materials. So that not only makes it more difficult on the user, but can also present challenges if you bring that bike to a shop that doesn't sell that e-bike. They might not be able or willing to work on the bike because of the sheer weight and the complexity of the e-bike system. So that could be like a direct-to-consumer purchase or e-bike that's out there. Some other things to take into consideration is absolutely application. If you are choosing an e-bike for commuting, there would be no reason to choose a downhill electric bike. That obviously wouldn't be the right application in that system. And then some of it also can be about how much power, how much assist do you really need. So my system is only 500 watts of power, and it cuts out at 20 miles per hour. So it's a class 1 e-bike. And I knew I wasn't going to be doing anything crazy, and that's why I made the decision to get that bike. Does anyone have anything to add about what criteria you were looking for when you decided to make your purchase?
I can chime in. I didn't know if I was muted, sorry. I think the biggest thing for me, and you mentioned this as well, is that this was a bike that we already owned and that we'd had for maybe 2 years or so. And we were looking to be able to get even more use out of it since it is that kind of specialized cargo bike. And being able to keep that bike that we already had and just add the electric kit to it we were able to take what was already a fairly decent size expense and be able to add the electric to it without having to buy a whole new special, very kind of unique use case bike that also had the battery and the motor and everything built into it. So for me, it was very much part of an economical choice, is that it was less expensive to get that kit and add it to our existing cargo bike than it was to buy a whole new bike. That said, I am the type of person that likes to tinker and pick out the exact bits and pieces to everything that's going on. So that also appealed to me. I was able to pick out exactly how large a battery capacity that I wanted, how much power I was looking for, the way that it was going to be set up and configured. So that appealed to me, but I could certainly see where that's more unique to my personality than it would be to others.
Great, thank you.
I just asked Matthew what he picked out. But I think it definitely cost was a factor, and it was still a pretty big chunk of chains I was dropping, because it was I think about $1,200 for the kit, and then I had to pay for installation, and I also chose to upgrade my brake system to hydraulic brakes, which was a lot of money to spend, but it helped. It gave me the stopping power I needed to be safe, and so I would definitely recommend, especially if you're going to be. I don't remember Kelsey. So you have a class 1, and then
right.
Matthew and I would be considered, what is it, a class 2 or 3?
I think it's considered a class 3 because of the power output.
So the difference is
and
that
we don't
we don't have a governor, and we also have a throttle. So a class 1, it would go, the electric assist would be engaged when you pedal, which that's true on my bike and Matthew's bike as well, but we also have the throttle. And for me, I really feel like the throttle gives me an extra sense of safety when I'm going in high-speed traffic. And not everybody would be, I ride on Brambleton Avenue, for example, with my kids going to the Elks Club, and there's a short section that's uphill, and I can engage that throttle and be going 20 miles an hour while I'm not as fast as most of as people might drive on that road. I'm fast enough that they're not going to try to pass me for that short section of road. So having that throttle, most of the time I don't need to go 20 or 25 miles an hour, but just for that short section, I want to. And if I were to change my settings to make myself go faster, I'd have to look down and tap the button. And with the throttle, I can just I don't have to look down. I can just push it and I can go. So that definitely, having the class 3, which is legal in Virginia, is my understanding, but it's not legal in all states. So if you buy already a complete electric bike from a company, most of the time they're going to make it so it'll work in all 50 states, and which means that it's limited to what you can do. And in Virginia, the rules aren't as specific. So it's legal for Matthew and I to have a throttle and to be able to go a little faster. But I guess get back to the original question, which was what kind of e-bike to get. It's such a
correct. Yes.
Yeah, it's such an
emerging
market.
Yeah, for me personally, I didn't know much about it.
Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you guys.
Oh, I think, Aaron, you may have frozen there.
Oh, did I? Sorry. So who was talking? I didn't want to interrupt.
I think you just froze.
Okay. Do you want me to talk, or was?
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, I can't hear you.
Matt, you can hear us, right?
I can hear everyone.
I think you. Well, I think we were getting to the we are getting into that criteria of what type of. Okay, cool. I think it's important to take into consideration that, like Aaron said, it's an emerging market. There are many, many e-bikes coming on the market, and some of those companies aren't going to last. So that is absolutely something else to take into consideration, and why we picked to carry certain bike brands and certain e-bike brands is because they were long-standing and we felt that they had a future. There was I can't remember the name of the company, but there was a recent e-bike company that filed bankruptcy. So if you had that e-bike, then you were unfortunately sort of, there goes your warranty, there goes any bike shops being able to work on your bike. What's nice about buying an e-bike from a shop is then they are able to work on the bike. And Downshift is one of the few shops who is willing to try to work on different e-bikes that we maybe don't sell, but that's without any sort of guarantee that we'll have access to be able to fix the issues that are presented. The other question that we had was from Rusty, and that question is let's see. All right. There's just a little bit of a lag here. Can everyone hear me? Okay. All right. Rusty said, that being said, what is the cost difference for the add-on? So the Luna e-kit starts at about $1,600 to be purchased and installed onto a bicycle that you already have. But that can vary based on battery capacity and power output and things like if you want a black and white display or a color display controller. So there are some different costs to take into consideration. My bicycle new is $23.99, as well as Josh's is about that cost as well. And those are for kind of entry-level style bicycle e-bike, $1,600 add-on kit to a current bicycle that you have, and then the add-ons that you choose. Are there any other questions on that topic? All right, Aaron, are you able to hear us okay? Looks like we just might be having some connection issues. Matt, are you still there? Aaron abandoned us. All right, well, let's see. It looks like he might be back. Any other questions from folks watching about e-bikes in general, or e-bike, something that you want an e-bike user to answer? All right, Josh, your commute is about what, 6 miles?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about how quickly you're able to commute being on an e-bike compared to your regular bike, and just how that commute has changed depend on the setting that you have.
Yeah, so my commute specifically has a lot of hills, and that was one of the main reasons that I went with an e-bike. On my normal bike, it would take me about 20 minutes to get to work, and then anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes to get back from work, just because the majority of it is uphill. On an e-bike, it takes me about 15 minutes both ways, just because it almost eliminates hills altogether. I mean, I'll go about an average of 18 to 20 miles an hour in most areas, and then on the hills, it only goes down to about 16 miles an hour in most cases. So it's a lot more reliable in that way. It just cuts down on time, it cuts down on effort, and it's just so reliable regardless of what the outside sort of variables are. It's really nice in that respect. I'll still ride my normal bike occasionally, but as far as, reliance, it's definitely the e-bike.
All right. What about Matt and Aaron? Where has your e-bike taken you? What hills have you conquered, or what different adventures or simply errands have you been comfortable running because of your e-bike?
I think is Matthew. Did we drop him on accident or? Okay, there's Matthew. Mostly, I ride my.
Do you have anything to add, Aaron?
Yeah, mostly I ride my bike.
I don't know if Aaron can hear us.
Oh, I can hear you.
Are we having technical issues? I wonder if people can hear us. Can you hear
both
us,
of you.
Folks in the audience?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, due to some technical difficulties, we're going to go ahead and appreciate everybody tuning in. If you, yeah, probably. Aaron, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
The video is kind of on a lag, though.
Yeah, definitely.
James
Definitely
is an 18-second lag.
18 seconds.
Very precise. I'll answer the last question, though. Normally, my bike. Did we lose Kelsey?
Just keep going.
Okay. Well, usually my daily adventures is to go pick up my kids and ride around town, and so I have a lot of adventures doing that. And the bike is worth the cost of ownership just for that. But a couple things that I've gotten to use it for that I didn't think about before I bought it was I did a canoe shuttle run by just we loaded up the truck. I put my bike in the back of the truck and unloaded the. I think actually we had kayaks, so we unloaded the kayaks and paddle boards. And then I drove to the takeout, and I got back on my bike and rode back to the put-in. And then at the end of the trip, we just drove back and picked the bike up. So it was like a one-car shuttle, the e-bike, and I wouldn't have been able to do that otherwise. So that was pretty fun. And one battery charge got me over the mountain. I was on the Balcony Falls section of the James River. So there's a big mountain you have to go over, and I think I ran out of battery at the very end, but it was flat, coasting back into the put-in. So that was a lot of fun. I
guess there's some adventures that I expected to be able to do with the e-bike, things like carrying the kids around on the back, multiple kids. I guess probably the most unusual or unexpected adventure that I've done a couple times now is using the e-bike to be able to haul a second bike. So I've got a tray on the back of the e-bike where I can put another bike in there. And so I've actually, when I purchased my most recent mountain bike, I went to the shop, picked up the mountain bike, put it on, attached it to the back of the e-bike, and biked it home. So I was able to complete a new bike purchase without any automobiles involved, which was kind of a fun and unique thing that I probably wouldn't have done without the extra electric assist. And Kelsey and Josh are back. Hi.
Yeah, I saw James Rosar had a question on there about how the bike parking works. And, for me, I built a ramp off of my deck, which most people wouldn't do. But I just did that a long time ago before I had the e-bike because I wanted to be able to bring my bikes in and out of my house very easily. And so I just park it inside my house, and I can easily just roll it up that ramp. But one thing to factor into your purchase is the batteries are very expensive, and they're often easy to detach from the bike. However, depending on what type of setup you have, with the Luna setup that I have, it's locked. The battery is locked onto the bike. So at least in the environment that we have here in Roanoke, I don't have to worry about somebody stealing my battery off of there. All the other components are bolted on, and just the level of bike thievery in Roanoke, in my experience, people aren't disassembling your bike as long as it's fairly well attached. In some other cities, you would probably have to worry about that. But in Roanoke, I have not had that problem. And so I just lock my bike with a U-lock in front of the business or the location that I go to. Or sometimes I actually will lock the front wheel to the frame, and the bike is so freaking heavy that nobody's gonna, if they try to steal it, you're gonna like see them like trying to drag it away. So it'll deter most Roanoke bike thieves. And so I haven't really found an issue, although I can imagine if you live in an apartment, then a electric cargo bike is probably going to be you're going to have to think about it a little bit more. You're not taking it up the elevator so easily.
Yeah, I haven't had any. I mean, my bike is the size of a regular bike, maybe a little bit heavier than a typical bike. So parking for me is just parking in a regular bike spot. And then at home, I have a garage that it's locked inside of. So I don't know.
It's also probably worth, like what I was going to say about the previous question about what type of e-bike. It's an emerging market, and they're coming out with like every type of like any type of bike you can think of, they got an e-bike version of it. So if you were the person that lived in an apartment, you can get a folding e-bike. They even make a folding electric cargo bike.
All the adjectives.
Yeah, like so. I think that everybody's situation's a little different with bike parking, and you may just think that through and buy the electric bike that works best for your situation.
Awesome. Is there anything anyone else, if anyone has any more questions, please comment with them. But are there any other pieces of advice or thoughts that you all have as people who ride e-bikes that you want to contribute? Go ahead, Aaron.
So we haven't really talked that much about like e-bikes being controversial, and it seems like on the interwebs and social media platforms, people like to argue about it and like put their stake in the ground and be like, I'm an e-biker, or like, I hate e-bikes and I'd beat up people if I saw them e-biking. I mean, I've actually heard that, like somebody said they would beat up people if they like saw them on a trail or something, because they shouldn't be there with their electric bike. And so I just don't think it's very controversial. And certainly when you show up with your kids on your electric bike, all you get is smiles. And I haven't really heard any encounters of people having hostility in the real world outside of the social platforms. And I think that if people try it out, then they'll probably find that it's fun, regardless of if you like. I like it for practical reasons, but riding an e-bike is very fun. And I think that the things that people are concerned about in terms of like that make e-biking potentially controversial, like they're worried about speed, they're worried about like tearing up the trails, or like disrespecting other people that by going fast or being reckless. And those are all things that you could, like people can go fast without an e-bike, and they can be disrespectful without an e-bike. And so, I think that if you're on a greenway, for example, that's like has a lot of pedestrian traffic, then there's an appropriate speed that you should be riding at. And if you're going too fast, then it's just reckless and dangerous, regardless of if you're on an e-bike. And so I think the focus needs to be on like safety and using your vehicle appropriately in the context. And they're very, e-bikes are quiet, so you don't have the same concerns as like if somebody's going through with their motocross bike or their motorcycle on a greenway, spewing out emissions and being loud. So anyway, I don't know if anybody else has any other thoughts about that side of e-biking.
Yeah, I would just echo that. I haven't, like, as an e-bike user in the real world, I've had zero negative interactions with other humans about me being on an e-bike and using an e-bike. Most people are actually really excited about it.
I agree. I'm an e-bike user. My partner's an e-bike user, and we've both been on our e-bikes and with our little one on my bike. And Hartman is a type 1 diabetic and has often struggled to bike with us and be able to do that as a family because of the constant threat of kind of having too low of blood sugars. So being able to not put out as much effort if he doesn't want to has been really helpful in terms of just being able to monitor that and having a family activity that we do together. And we just been, I think, had, like you all said, no negative interactions. Obviously, we ride our bikes as respectful as we do. We're not on e-bikes. And it really is something that we are able, the e-bikes have allowed us to do a family activity that we wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And so I kind of echo what you all have said, that it's helpful. It's been really helpful to us. Patty is asking if, let's see, we have a greenway that says no motorized. Are e-bikes considered that or not? As it currently stands in the city of Roanoke, and maybe be in the other greenway systems in the county and Salem, I'm not sure, so someone can correct me. E-bikes are not allowed on our greenway system. Do you all know about like the other greenways, like the Salem Greenway? I don't know, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm
not sure.
Me neither.
Okay.
Yeah. I personally am opposed to the ban of e-bikes on the greenway, and I personally ride my e-bike on the greenway, and I happen to pick my kids up at the Boys and Girls Club on I guess it's 9th Street in Southeast, and the greenway is a very convenient route between that and my house, and it's really the safest route. And the greenway was built with VDOT transportation dollars, so I just disagree with the city's decision to limit e-bike traffic on the greenways. I think it's wrong, and I've never had anybody. It's not regulated, and there's very few signs. So I just happen to know that it's restricted, but I think that a lot of people could be using the greenway with their e-bike and just honestly not know that that's a rule. I have, I don't feel like I'm a scofflaw or a rule breaker. Maybe a little bit, I like punk rock and stuff, but I just don't think it's I think it should be allowed, and I encourage people to, if they feel the same way, to express their opinion. And I don't mind having that debate with other people too. I know that people have legitimate concerns, but I just don't think saying blanket nobody can ride their e-bike on the greenway is appropriate. Because if we're riding at appropriate speed, then how's it any different than riding a regular bicycle? Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I think we've gotten through all our technical difficulties and we've gotten through all of the questions, but I really appreciate you all being here to share your experiences, and I appreciate the people who are viewing this conversation for your questions. If anyone has any further questions, I believe this video will be saved and posted on our Facebook page automatically, so you can watch this video at a later time. And if you have any questions, myself or the staff at Downshift, as well as Aaron and Matt, I'm sure would be happy to answer any questions. We might even let you test ride our bikes. Aaron and Matt might let you ride on the back of their cargo bikes if you're lucky. So there's a lot of different ways to experience electric bikes. And I think if I have one last closing thing to say, it is that e-bikes are not what you expect them to be, and you don't know until you ride one and realize that it just enhances your experience and makes it so that you can ride further and faster and enjoy more cycling than you could before. So thank you all so much, and tune in. We will do more videos like this with local experts, advocates, and cyclists for everyone in the Roanoke and beyond, like Patty in Florida, for everyone to enjoy. So thank you all so much again, and we will see you soon.
Go ride.